So good morning, everybody. It is 10:09. I'd like to call this June meeting of the Broward Housing Council to order. Sue, can we go through with the roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Alex Almanzar,
Here.
Ajibola Balagan,
Here.
Marcia Berry-Smith, Maura Ballman. Here. Good morning. Michelle Cawley, Beth Daly. Here. Luke Harrigan. Here. Arnell Joyce.
Here.
Chris Kresman.
Here.
Mike Pearson. Nathan Perlmutter.
Here.
Ashley Roche. Commissioner Rogers cannot join us today. She's out of town on county business. Ralph Stone.
Here.
Tanisha Taylor. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start off this meeting with introduction of our new Housing Council members, which is quite exciting. First up, a recommendation from Dr. Ned Murray at FIU is Alex Almanzar. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. I am the research coordinator at the FIU Metropolitan Center. I have a lot of respect for the work that gets done in Broward County, so I'm honored and excited to hopefully contribute to that.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Plus, I'll say that Alex was a ghost author of the 10-year master plan.
Fantastic. Thank you for your work. Great work. For those that don't know, Alex is here from FIU as a member that has technical housing experience. We also have Mike Pearson, who unfortunately could not be here with us today. He's with the Florida Association of Mortgage Professionals, a recommendation from Gino Moro. We'll hopefully see Mike at our next meeting. That being said, I do have Ralph, who needs to run here, so I'm going to let Ralph do his presentation before we get into the continuum of care.
Hey, Darby, remind me what you wanted me to report on, because I think I remember. If you don't remember, I'm out of here. Okay, sure. So coming out of the recession, this is going back to 2010, the county had accumulated almost 100 vacant lots in the unincorporated area, which is called the BMSD, the Broward Municipal Services District. And it was a drag on the neighborhood, obviously, so we decided to create an infill housing program for first-time home buyers. And we did, I think the first tranche was around 20 houses, and I remember we contacted the property appraiser's office and said, what kind of value can we put on these lots? And he went, none. So since that time, we're over, I think we're close to 90 homes, and you know, going on going on 10 years. So it's been a really successful program. If you're familiar, if you're driving through the BMSD, you can actually tell which ones are our homes. They're a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, fenced-in backyard, minimum of 1,500 square feet. So in the recent cycles, we originally went out to the private side, then we did kind of a combo thing, but recently we've done a nonprofit solicitation for the lots, and Habitat, Minority Builders, and the Urban Council were our builders last time around, and they are all 3 our builders this time. They each have 4 lots. So a couple of meetings ago, the board did approve awarding those 3 nonprofits 4 lots each. They're actively out there starting to do the pre-development work, and we think about this time next year they're going to have 12 new homeowners. Darby, by the way, was very helpful. We actually started on this almost a year ago and immediately ran into the dynamic that the flood elevation had just changed, which significantly impacted all of their development plans, and spent a year working with with Public Works and the building department about how to attend to that, what options we had, and ultimately there really weren't any, and they were going to have to meet the flood elevations, and it was going to create some significant costs. So we got that settled out. So this 12 we think will put us over 100, and what we'll do is when we have our new homeowners moving in next year, we'll have a ribbon cutting and invite the housing council, and you can come out and see what the houses look like. They're really, really nice.
Excellent work. Does anybody have any questions for Ralph?
Thank you. On the home ownership side, does everybody have the same kind of parameters to become a home ownership, or is Habitat's program different from other nonprofit development teams?
They all have a income limitation of 120% of area median income. We only have gap financing for about 1 out of their 4 to be 120s. The others will be 80% of area median income. If you're familiar with Habitat's business model, it's unlike anything else that the other two do or that we do with individual home buyers. And it allows them to get down to a very low income cohort because their subsidies are so deep. They're getting down to 30% AMI homeowners. You just don't see that in any other program. But the short answer is it's up to 120, and we think 1 out of the 4 will likely be a 120, which is good for the neighborhood because it's a little higher income, and it gets a little more wealth in the neighborhood.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ralph.
You're welcome.
Moving on, we are welcoming Patrice Paldino from the Broward County Continuum of Care, Director for the Broward County Housing Options, Solutions, and Supports Division. Thank you, Patrice.
Great, thank you. That one? Great, perfect. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to talk to you today. I was asked to come and talk about the continuum of care. As was mentioned, I'm the director for HOSD. That's the county's newest. We're just about 2 years old. We handle the issues related to homelessness and also human rights. Human rights falls under us as well. So if you have any questions, please just let me know as we go through this. So I was asked to come and talk to you about the homeless continuum of care, what the continuum does, provide you some information regarding our homeless intervention, and also I'm going to give you a little bit of information about House Bill 1365, which, if you're familiar with it, was enacted and went into effect in October of 2024, and that relates to homelessness. So who is HOSD? We are the section, as I said, that manages all of the programs for the homeless across the county. So all general funds and federal dollars and state dollars flow through HOSD, and we subcontract out most of our services to nonprofits in the community. We do have some in-house services. We do provide some housing case management and housing navigation, so basically helping people find units, permanent supportive housing, and rapid rehousing. We have our operations section, which is me and some of the administrative functions, as well as human rights, which falls under us because of the investigation of fair housing and discrimination. So obviously, if you're residing in an affordable unit, but you're suffering through some discriminatory practices, or you're trying to obtain an affordable unit and there's discriminatory practices in place, it's important that we investigate that, and that is a way to be able to keep people or get people into affordable housing. So that's why that falls under our purview. So the continuum of care is authorized by federal regulations through HUD. We are what's called the collaborative applicant. So the county submits a response to a notice of funding opportunity. We just did it last October to receive all of the federal dollars that will come to the jurisdiction for disbursement amongst the nonprofits. The nonprofits collaborate with us, and we submit one application. We coordinate all the services. We make sure the nonprofit providers have the tools that they need to be able to provide the services, make sure that they are providing the services, make sure that they're utilizing their contracts appropriately. We monitor over and underutilization, not just to make sure they're spending their dollars, but also to watch for trends, right? So if we see something happening, for example, we have a contract for mobile sanitation, which is for showers. We see a little bit of underutilization. We kind of look into that and see what's happening. Why in the first quarter are you underutilizing? Second quarter you're still underutilizing. What's happening? So we watch for those trends as well. So there's a COC charter, and this is just obviously some of it. But the continuum of care has a board to act on behalf of the continuum. And the board must be representative of relevant organizations and projects serving homeless, and must include at least one person that is experiencing homeless or formerly homeless. We currently have 2 people with lived experience on our board. The board serves as in an advisory capacity on all matters related to homelessness. And here's what I was referencing earlier. We are the collaborative applicant, meaning we submit the application to HUD and collaborate to create a comprehensive approach to attacking homelessness. We also, the county owns the shelters, if you know, they're called the HAC, the Homeless Assistance Centers. So we manage all of those resources and manage those buildings as well. The board meets every fourth Wednesday of the month, and we have three main committees. There actually is another one, the Youth Advisory Committee, but the Performance, Outcome, Needs, and Gaps is exactly that. We call it the PONG. They look at needs and gaps. Where are the holes? Where are we doing well? Where do we need to be focused more? They meet once a month. And usually what happens is each of these committees, their recommendations when they vote on something, then that rolls up to the COC to consider for final implementation or recommendation. The Housing Action Committee meets on the second Wednesday of every month. This committee right now is working on our landlord initiative. We have a project where we encourage landlords to, I don't want to say register, but work with us to provide affordable units to the people that we serve. And also to understand that our clients have housing barriers. They may have a recent eviction. They may have other challenges. And so we work with a long list of landlords who are willing to overlook those challenges. We provide first, last, and security. Sometimes we provide a little extra landlord incentive. If there's a recent challenge, we might provide an extra security deposit or just an additional $500 to work with this particular tenant. And so the Housing Action Committee right now is working on probably a November event where we're going to recognize the landlords that we work with. We ask our nonprofit providers to nominate landlords that in particular have kind of gone above and beyond. Also, I'd like this event to be a recruitment effort. So bringing landlords in who are not working with us to come and talk to the landlords who are part of the program and understand why it makes business sense for them, and why it also makes you feel good, right? What's the benefit to the landlord to participate in this program? So that's what that committee's working on right now. Certainly, if you know any landlords that are interested in working with the program, what we are trying to do is get in front of, so up until now, we kind of have been reactionary, right? Someone comes in and says, what's today, June 27th? I need a unit by July 1st, right? So we're kind of scrambling to try and find a unit for July 1st. What I'd eventually like to get to is where the landlords that participate with our program find out today, June 27th, that their tenant's not renewing for August 1st, right? There's usually a 30 or 60-day window of notice. Tell me today, I have a vacancy as of August 1st, so that we can make the match. We know that there's a tenant looking for something August 1st. We know there's a landlord out there that has an August 1st vacancy. So that's kind of the next iteration of where we're trying to move that landlord project. The Consumer Advocacy Committee meets once a month. I'm sorry, every other month. They are representative of the consumer needs, the client needs. This is chaired by a formerly homeless individual, and is the voice of the homeless. Their recent project was just 2 weeks ago, was our homeless symposium in Hollywood. We brought together 40 or plus providers. We bring them all on site and bring the homeless there so that the homeless can talk to all the providers all at once. We also do a facilitated discussion. We have questions that county staff facilitates to ask them what their needs are, how we can best meet their needs. And then when they identify something that's in the room, so for example, somebody says they're a veteran, walk them right over to Veteran Services, for example. So that just was 2 weeks ago in the city of Hollywood. Last year we did it in Fort Lauderdale downtown near the bus terminal where the community court is. Both events were very successful. We're trying to move them to different hotspots in the county, not just have them in Fort Lauderdale, so that we're actually bringing it to high traffic areas. Our next one is likely in Pompano. We're working with a church to do it probably in February. So the Consumer Advocacy Committee is working on that project. So I thought I'd bring you just some information about what homelessness looks like. It's very hard. I'm sure I'm not telling you something that you don't already know. For us to be able to count how many homeless people there are is difficult. HUD requires what's called a point in time count, the PIT. It's required at least every other year. But HUD knows, and we know, and everyone in the country who does this work knows that the PIT is really not representative of what's on the streets, because not everybody comes out to be counted, right? This year in particular, I'm sorry? It was the coldest days this year. Yes. Thank you. I assume that you were participating. Yes. It was a very cold, it was the time, actually, it was cold, and we were actually sheltering people. We were opening up our shelters those evenings, adding bed space, because it was the nights were in the 50s. So we did see a decline in our numbers from 2023 to 2025, which we know is not necessarily representative, but we have to do the PIT, and we submit it up to HUD, and everybody does, and everybody knows that it's really not, it looks at trends, right? But we have to understand the data, and one of the most important things is that the other thing is what I'm going to talk about in a little bit, House Bill 1365, which across the state of Florida, we do think may have had a chilling effect on people coming out to be counted. In addition, the cold not only prevented the homeless from coming out, but we had volunteers that said, I'm counting on the beach. It's way too cold at 6 a.m. and, left. So it was, but that said, so how can we count? What this number represents are the second quarter numbers for persons who met with our street outreach teams. We have 2 street outreach providers, Task Force and Care Resource. Those teams do exactly that. They go out onto the street and meet homeless people. They so when there's a call to the hotline, or somebody says to me, Patrice, there's 3 people on the corner of, Andrews and whatever, and we send task force, they're the ones who go out and meet. And then we have a system, HMIS, that obviously we're able to determine if it's a duplicate. So in the second quarter, our street outreach teams met 5,129 individuals, which represents 3,500 households. A household is a person of 1 or more. So when we say 586 families, that's a person of 1 or more. And then here's the breakdown with children, adults, and over 55. These are, the next chart is the breakdown of what we call, what is defined as the chronically homeless, people who have a disability and are homeless. And this number is 996, and this breakdown is a breakdown of the 996, not of the 5,000, but of the 996, the different conditions that we find. And remember, this is also could be duplicative, because somebody could have more than one condition, right? So, this is our shelter information. As I said earlier, the county owns the North and the Central Homeless Assistance Centers. That the North is in Pompano, the Central is in Fort Lauderdale. As you can see, when you talk about 587 beds, and we talk about 5,000 individuals, we're not even close to having enough shelters. It's 1/10. Right. So, and we don't want people in shelters all the time anyway, but, and they're rotating, right? They're not, it's not a one, it's a point in time, right? So if we have 5,000 people, but not all at one time that are looking for the 587 beds, but clearly 587 beds does not meet our needs. So we end up with a lot of people sleeping in cars, on the streets, and so forth. We just recently added the Broward Outreach Center. That's the one that's located in Hollywood. That's what we call the South Hack. That is not owned by the county, but we just recently recontracted with them to add some beds to the continuum. This slide, and I believe these slides are available to you, so if you haven't received it and you want me to send them to you, I'm happy to do it. This represents the services that the county has available. We at Haas are intervention services. The Family Success Administration Division, FSAD, is what we call the prevention side. These are all the services that are in place for anyone in the county. So you can see we have our shelters, we have housing, client assistance, which is case management and housing navigation. Our outreach includes not only the street outreach that I mentioned a little while ago, but we also are in partnership with the airport and transit with specialized projects, street outreach, where we have teams that go out to the airport because the airport is a nice shelter for them. It's cool, it has food. We have a significant homeless issue there. So we work with the airport to try and house those people, or at least get them out of the airport, reminding them that the airport is not a shelter. We do the same thing with transit. We go to all the bus stops if there's activity at the bus stops, and try and get people who are living in these locations to at least register with our services and see if there's something that we can provide to them. When we do those outreach events, whether it's at the airport, transit, or other locations, for example, we go frequently to a church in Pompano on a Saturday. They see 50 to 60 homeless people every Saturday for feeding and ministry. So we occasionally go there. We also bring BARC with us, another county division, so that we're providing services for anyone who needs detox. And every single time I've gone to those events, someone there was in active withdrawal, and the BARC team immediately took them to detox. So all of what we're trying to do is very comprehensive, and we bring in all of our partners trying to bring a holistic approach to a very difficult situation. We have a medical respite program for people who are released from the hospitals that need just a little bit of extra care, not any kind of long-term nursing care or assisted living or anything, wound care, things like that. We work with Broward House, and we're going to begin to work with the Central HAC to provide beds on site. The Broward Hospital District is going to bring in some light nursing care so that when that person is discharged to the Central HAC, they can get that light nursing touch that they need. Mobile sanitation, as I mentioned to you earlier, is our mobile showers, so buses that go out and provide shower opportunities. And then finally, we have our legal assistance program, which is eviction prevention in cooperation with Legal Aid of Broward and Coast to Coast Legal Aid to provide eviction. So when a person is facing eviction for non-payment, they go to Legal Aid or Coast to Coast, they get an attorney, and they get screened for rent assistance. So if they're eligible, we pay the rent for them, and the lawyers make sure that the eviction case is dismissed. Very successful program. And then similarly, just for your information, FSAD provides these things that are preventive services, right? Trying to pay the rent before they get a 3-day notice or before the eviction is filed, mortgage assistance, case management, first-time home buyer, home repairs, vehicle repair, because we know that a lot of the people that we serve are just one paycheck away or one broken down car. Just one issue can put them into homelessness. So these programs are set up to prevent homelessness. This is the HOSD budget so that you can see how much of a commitment the commissioners have made to the homelessness issue. General funding in excess of $26 million, grant funding $18 million, for a total of almost $45 million just for HOSD services. This is our provider network. These are all the providers that we work with directly that are receiving funding through either general funds or the HUD funding. Oh, sorry, these are a little out of order. FSAD's budget, you can see also the commitment of the county commissioners, another $68 million towards prevention services. So the county is very committed to working to find solutions. So I wanted to just show you this. This is what we're trying to do is kind of, I hate to use the words think outside the box, but we are trying to think outside the box, trying to find new ways, because I showed you 587 shelter beds. We cannot help enough people with 587. So what do we do? What do we do with the fact that we have a mother and children sleeping in a car, or a family where the husband is working, they're sleeping in a car, they're working, but they don't have the money to afford because, I'm preaching to the choir, rents are just not affordable. And when I say, I almost hesitate to use the word affordable when I talk about rent and housing, because affordable housing, as you know, is defined by HUD as if you only spend 30% of your income on rent or your housing costs, right? And so I hesitate to use that because I'm not really sure anybody is paying 30%. So when we're talking about what's affordable, we're not even talking about what's affordable anymore, according to HUD. We're talking about what you can survive, right? Can you actually find something that you can pay for? It's not affordability anymore. It's a much bigger crisis than whether or not you're talking about whether or not your housing costs are affordable. So some of the things that we're doing is that we're working with one of the housing authorities with their low-income tax credit program. So they are allowing us to have our clients fill out applications for their tax credit programs, and we submit it directly to the housing authority, and they screen those people for us to see if people coming from the continuum of care are eligible for entry into the program. So those screenings are currently going on. The Villages at New River is run by AIDS Health Foundation. They purchased the Days Inn on Broward Boulevard, if you're familiar with it, across from the Salvation Army, right off of 95. They have 140 units in there, and they started renting those units for $750 a month. It's Broward Boulevard, just off of 95, just east on the south side, right? I can tell you, I'm sure you, I don't have to tell you that there was a mad rush for those units. By the time I found out about it, there were approximately 40 units left, and I said, let me have them. I can fill them for you. And then the person that I spoke to went on medical leave. So she had said, yeah, we're going to let you. And so the next person who came in that Monday didn't translate that to them. So they continued to fill those units. Nonetheless, it's okay. We got 17 of them. And we put 17 families in there. We provided the deposit for them, and we paid their rent from January to June 30th. We only put people in there who had income of $1,500. So we looked at 50%, $1,500 a month, so that as of July 1st, they should be able to pay their rent. We've been paying it for 6 months. We gave them Publix gift cards. And we also gave them case management, which will continue after July 1st. So this is a pilot that we launched. All of those people are in there. I think, I don't want to misquote, but of the 17, I want to say maybe 12 are over 55. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's the shared living that I'm going to talk about next. But of the 17, I think most of them were single families, but it's a traditional motel room with 2 queen-size beds, double beds, with a microwave and a refrigerator. So we also provided to these residents some incidentals. So we gave them an opportunity to pick from a rice cooker, a air fryer, and sheets and stuff like that. So we gave them packages also as they moved in to kind of set them up. And they don't have a 1-year lease. They're kind of month to month, but they can stay there as long as they need to. So this is really important because we're using this data when we consider what other kinds of options we have. Is this something that we should be looking at as a county in response, a hotel option at a $750 price point, which they obviously have a long wait list for now. Shared living is exactly what it sounds like. We have 5 or 6 providers that have a house with 4 bedrooms, and they're renting each bedroom out separately, separate leases for the 4 occupants. This is, research is showing that it's nice for elderly people. We are also seeing that is a benefit. As I said earlier, I think we have 12 or 13 of these 16 are over the age of 55. It's also been used with veterans, and we've been successful so far. The 16 people we have in there, they're doing very well. And this is another option that's available to people who can pay this. And so it's around 800 to 900, depending on the unit and depending on the amenities that it offers. We have one provider that has a house, for example, in Plantation, that has a nurse that comes in visits. That provider is, she has several. When I met her last year at the homeless symposium that we did in Fort Lauderdale, her words to me were, "Yeah, I have X number of units, but if I need to get more, I'll get more." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, good for you." So, so these are the kind of providers that we're working with, are people who are thinking of different creative ways to make beds available. And as you can see, if we can serve 94 people with these unique opportunities, the cost is $82,000. It costs us over $16,000 per person per year to put them in a shelter. So if you have a family of 4, you're talking about $64,000 to keep them in a shelter for a year. And guess what? At the end of that year, I mean, there's no limit to there's I'm just saying, at the end of the year, if they're ready to move, after we've spent $64,000 to shelter them, we still have to house them, right? So is that a best use when we're talking about a family that does have income, but just not enough to sustain in a unit? So that's where we're going, is where can we better spend our dollars?
Before you get off that.
Sure.
The shared living, you, unlike the prior one, you do not pay rent, but you pay moving costs. Is that what it is?
The county?
Yes.
That's correct. In the shared living, we provided them with move-in costs, but they are also people who can afford to stay there. And the providers provide light touch case management. The woman that I talked about earlier that said she'll get more units, and she has the one with the nurse, she also helps them with disability applications, food SNAP applications. She provides a lot. When they move in, she gives them a basket with brand new sheets, cleaning supplies, really, really a very generous move-in package kind of for them. But yes, that's correct. So we're trying different models to see, and then we're following the data, right? And the other thing that we're tracking is, and I didn't bring it, but we're tracking of these people that were moving into these other options, did they come from the shelter? Because if they came from the shelter, if I move 3 people into the AIDS Health Foundation opportunity, I just got 3 beds at the shelter, right? So we're also tracking that kind of data, the cascading effect on different parts of the system. Yes, that's okay. Correct.
That just started a foundation, and it's going to be shared, because that's not a house. So you can find all the information now to know what to do. So you just do the initial cost.
We've been providing the move-in costs, correct, like first, last, and security. And if that's an opportunity that, I'll make sure I give you my card so you can reach out when you're ready. We also are looking at expanding the shelter. As I said, we added the 18 beds at the South Hack, and we're looking at the Central Hack of doing renovations to be able to add an additional 40 beds there. Right now, their capacity is at 260. We're looking to get it to 300. So this crazy chart, Ralph will laugh at me because I've been working on it with him. This is kind of the way I see it. If we're talking about where can you invest in the system, if I had $500,000 or $1 million, where would I suggest you put it? You could put it to add additional shelter space. We need additional shelter space, right? Maybe you could help me build out the Central Hack with those additional 40. But I don't have land. I don't have another building where I can create more shelter space, right? So that's limited. But we could put money towards adding shelters. We could increase direct service funding. We can add money to legal services. We can add case management. We can do all of these things. And all of these things are important components of getting to the crisis. However, everybody gets stuck. Everybody bottlenecks at affordable housing. How do we get past that? And as I said earlier, when we're spending $16,000 to shelter one person a year, where's the best investment? There may be some people who, maybe some of it needs to go here, maybe it needs to spread out. I suggest that really, at this point in our crisis, we need to just decrease the affordability gap. And how are we going to do that? We're going to convince landlords to lower their rent? Right. So we have to help them with that gap, because we do have a lot of people. We have the chronically homeless. We have the people that have those morbidities that just really need the extra, that probably need to be in the shelter. I need to open up the shelters for those people, right? I need to get people out of the shelters who can live on their own, who just need money to decrease the gap, so that the 587 beds that I do have are available for the chronic that do need more assistance, that can't really at this point afford or be on their own. So what can we do? We can put more money towards all of this, and you see affordable housing development as part of this, put more housing towards the gap. I didn't provide you all the slides. I can if you want, but there I have data from the Broward County Housing Needs Assessment, as well as some anecdotal data that I have. I'm looking at gaps of $1,000 to $2,000 a month for people. If we're talking about families that could survive, if we gave them $1,000 to $2,000 a month, let's say it's a family of 4, that's $24,000 as opposed to $64,000, right? It might be a distasteful idea for some to continue a permanent supportive housing, which really is basically what I'm proposing or working on. But it's either $64,000 or $24,000, and they're housed. Because again, I spend $64,000 to keep them in the shelter. I still have to house them at some point. So these are the things that we're working on. These are the things that the continuum of care reviews. And are there any questions on that before I move into a whole other subject? Yes.
Well, quick question. When it's come to shelters, how much does zoning has to do with it?
Zoning does have to do with it. That's an excellent question. As far as the central hack, right now they are at their capacity of 240. So the city is working with us and the shelter to change the ordinance to get them to 300. So we do have to work with ordinances to make sure. So we're already at capacity for the central hack. So the first step in even considering whether or not I can get to 300 is whether or not the city of Fort Lauderdale will let us. They will. We're working with them. So, yeah. Yes.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Thanks, Patrice. I appreciate this presentation and all you do for this growing problem.
Thank you.
On one of the slides, there was a breakdown of the different issues people were having. I think behavioral health was 57%. I was just curious if that's further broken down, like how much of that is drug use, or how is that figured out, that 57%?
I do believe we have that broken down. I think I lumped those together. The
Okay.
behavioral health, yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious, like, on your thoughts of your budget and wraparound services dedicated. Do you have enough of your budget dedicated for that?
So my budget is not dedicated to providing drug treatment, for example,
Yep.
or, but because our money is housing, right? We partner with Bark and Henderson to make sure that, so when somebody's being case managed, if that's identified, that they're referred to a provider that does that, but that's not necessarily in my budget.
Okay. I'm just curious, like, all the services you offer, you think 57% kind of delve into those issues?
I'm sorry, I don't.
From the services that you offer and the partners that you have, like when you do your outreach programs?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, do you think it's proportionate to that 57%?
Well, this is our actual data, but for example, if you're asking me, just anecdotally, again, one of the Saturdays that I was at the First Baptist Church, there were 50 people there, and I think on one of those days, 4 of them were taken to detox.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it rings true, but again, that's anecdotal, right? And it's also self-reporting. So there's that as another factor, so that might actually be a higher number.
Mhm.
This is just all self-reported data.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Somebody else?
Thank you for your report. It's been so informative. Would it be possible to potentially see if we could forgive the property taxes for the landlords? who agreed to participate?
I certainly can pass that along. I don't know how the property appraiser would, but, there, you know, that's not actually too far-fetched because, there are proposals about eliminating property taxes altogether.
Right.
So, sure.
Because they're helping us help the homeless. So, and it's county money, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, any other questions on this before, oh, sorry.
Good.
I do. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Tanisha Taylor. With the diagram here, the intervention slide, so you mentioned that the gap, is it an average gap of about 1,000 to 2,000 for most, or is that the least you've seen?
That's where I'm looking is my sweet spot. When I look at the data that legal aid reports to me of people who come in that are being evicted, when I take that into consideration, when I take into consideration the Broward County Housing Needs Assessment and how they determine what the gap was, and basically when I'm looking at what we do provide as prevention or intervention services, we're in the 1 to 2,000. So that's where I'm looking at.
Okay. So my comment is way out of the box. What I'm about to say. I'm looking at this diagram and you mentioned where would you make the investment, where and how. And a big part of the affordability gap is wages.
Yes.
And I've done my research as well, you know, being in this space. And there should be, or there can be, I think there's opportunity to have a conversation with employers. I have not seen an initiative to materially engage employers about wages. Where am I going with this with your comment of 1,000 to 2,000? About 15 years ago, there's a hospital on the West Coast, I want to say in Tampa, that formed a CDFI. It has since been dissolved, but they formed a CDFI. They formed a partnership with a CDFI to provide assistance for relocating their staff because they were short medical staff. Is it a strategy that could be used here? Because again, the county and the cities are doing a lot for affordable housing. I mean, Broward is doing a lot. And when you get into 120,000 plus or 90,000 plus in subsidies, we have to ask, who else do we need to be talking to? So again, I know it may sound really out of the box, but engaging employers, is there a strategy or an opportunity to make an investment to cover 1,000 to 2,000?
No, that's an excellent point, and you're absolutely right. I promised Ralph earlier that I was probably finished with this slide, but maybe now I'm not. But so now I have to go back and rethink it. But no, actually, it's an excellent point. And to your point, I've been in this role for almost a year and a half, so I'm really new and getting in here. But that definitely is something that's important. So our team, a few of us went to there was an event at the convention center maybe a month or two ago, a job fair. It was huge, right? It was thousands. We went for that purpose. I walked around to tables, introduced myself, and said, would you be willing to, again, anecdotally, because I'm trying to put out several fires at the same time, trying to collect information from employers. And also the business council that works with the United Way, I'm trying to encourage them that this is an important part of that build out. So certainly, if you have ideas about that or how, if you can help me break ground on that, I definitely believe that that's an important component because, again, I know I'm preaching to the choir. When you're talking about an industry, Broward County, that the hotels and what our industry runs on, and that the people that I serve are your servers, your cleaning staff, and they're all the way out west, and we don't have good transportation and and they don't have a good wage to get, so it's a critical piece of it. So yes, I'm definitely interested in hearing many ideas, and I think you're right in the box.
Fantastic. Anybody else?
for, money to purchase food. And I asked them what's going on, I find out, they're homeless. So my question is, a few of them had said to me that they call, there's a hotline,
Yes.
homeless hotline.
Yes.
They call on the homeless hotline, and they're not getting an answer, or they tell them to go to, task force or another place, and either they go there and there's a long line, or they do not get an appointment to get in. So how are we addressing that?
We have 587 beds, and so, yes, that is the process. If someone is homeless and is in need of services, they call 311, which is the homeless helpline. They are connected with task force or care resource, our street outreach providers, and then they go through a prioritization. So they go through their vulnerability, or do they have children, are they pregnant, do they have comorbidities, whatever their issues are they a veteran, whatever. And then they're scored. And then
That's the only process, to call the hotline.
they have to call the hotline. Even if I find someone, I can't, me, the director, I can make some phone calls, but I still have to get them to the hotline, get them scored and screened the same way as anyone else. And it's a,
I understand the process,
yeah.
but they don't understand the process.
Right. That's you have to get screened. And it's very hard because every single person that comes to me, every single group that's advocating for me to do something for this person that they know, well, they're a domestic violence victim. You're right. A domestic violence victim shouldn't be on the street. Well, they're a mother with children. You're right. They're a pregnant mother with children, should not be sleeping in a car. They're a veteran. Yep, you're right. And then everybody's a priority. Nobody should be on the street, right? So we have to have a fair system of score, and that's the way that it's done. But nobody should be on the street. Everybody's a priority. So thank you for your question. So I just wanted to touch base just a little bit. House Bill 1365 is the law that says that counties and municipalities cannot allow a person to regularly engage in overnight camping or sleeping on public property. And it is not a law that criminalizes homelessness. It does not say you cannot sleep on the property. If you're sleeping on the property, you're going to get arrested. It says county, if you allow that, you can be sued. Now, so that's an important distinction, because the homeless were very afraid they were going to. Now, can they get arrested for trespassing? Yes. Can they get arrested for resisting without violence or with violence? Yes. So arrests can happen in the process, but the act of sleeping on the street or in a public place. So what do? We still continue with a housing first approach that, we try and put people in housing and put the wraparound services. We're working with the municipalities, how to best respond. Working with anyone, no matter how they get to our attention, has access to all of the services that we talked about earlier. Working to increase the shelter capacity and trying really hard not to make this about criminalizing homelessness. Let me just go back. So what we were required to do under the law is to have a mechanism that anytime we receive a written complaint from someone, we have 5 days to cure the problem. Otherwise, the complainant can file a lawsuit to force us to get in an injunction to force the county or the municipality to remove that person from the street or the public space. There was a very big concern that we were going to get sued. Everybody's going to find I'm an attorney, and when I read the statute, I was like, that's really not, there's not going to be a lot of lawsuits, because there's no pain and suffering. You don't get pain and suffering because you had to, suffer the trauma of seeing a homeless person on the street every day when you're going to work. There's not, you get an injunction and you get your costs if the court awards you your costs. So, you make this complaint and it's not cured in 5 days. You got to put up a lot of money to file a lawsuit, right? That you got to pay up front. The lawyer's going to bill you like crazy, because there's been no lawsuits yet in the state of Florida that I'm aware of. There'd be a lot of research involved, right? There's a lot of money up front. The Attorney General's office could file a lawsuit also, but I'm here to tell you, they're not going to file something unless they're going to make systemic impact, and they're going to make a really big federal case out of somebody sleeping somewhere that, that they can really make impact across the state. They're not going to pick up just one little person sleeping on a street corner, right? So I didn't think there was going to be any, and there haven't yet been any across the state of Florida. So one of the things that we're looking at is in the event that someone does come through House Bill 1365, we're going to expand adult civil citation, divert them to community court, allow them to do community service to avoid any charges that may arise with this law. In the event that you wish to file a complaint, this is how you do it. Each municipality has to have their own way to respond. This is the county way. We have Q Alert. This is the system. You can go in there. What ends up happening is you put in the information of where the person is, and then I'm alerted, several other people in the county are alerted, task force goes out, we try and engage, we continue to try and engage, we continue to try and engage. By the 5th day, we might have to involve law enforcement if the person has refused to move along. But we have not really had to do that. We've been successful in kind of convincing people to move along. Because task force is very good at working with people. Now, what does that mean? I mean, if the report is that I was on the corner of 1st and 3rd and now I just moved to the corner of 1st and 2nd, did we really resolve the problem? I don't know, but I guess that's what the courts will decide as we move along. But for right now, we have not had, if a complaint comes in and it actually is falls on the city of Fort Lauderdale property or street, we advise the complainant, this is not a county location. Here's the information to make a complaint to Fort Lauderdale. We notify Fort Lauderdale, so we make sure that it's covered all around. I will tell you that we've had maybe, I haven't looked at the numbers recently, 20 to 30, I would say. City of Fort Lauderdale had hundreds by November, just hundreds, because they expanded their city ordinance to prohibit public camping and sleeping at any time during the day. So 24/7, they have this system in place where they're getting hundreds of complaints in theirs. So that's the end of my presentation. If anyone has any other questions, I'm happy to answer them, but
Thank you very much,
you're very
Patrice.
welcome. Thank you.
That was an excellent presentation. I think there's a lot to digest there, and in this meeting, I of all the meetings that I've been to, I don't think I've seen so many note takers and taken so many notes myself. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For that.
I'll leave my card. If anyone has any questions, I'll make sure to give you my card. Certainly, I'm here if you have any other questions. I know I went through a lot, and there's a lot more. So happy to make myself available. Thank you
Yeah,
for your.
that leaves us with some fantastic discussion for the future as well. Moving on, I would like to entertain a motion for approval of the meeting minutes from April 25th.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Moved and seconded. Is there any corrections, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Minutes are approved. Thank you very much. As far as chair's report goes, my chair's report, I was excited to provide Marcia with a certificate, and Beth baked her a cake for her 7 years of being chair of the Housing Council. Unfortunately, she's not here, so Beth's going to have to freeze that cake. I'm just kidding.
We can Susan, you can freeze it.
Make another one next month. It's fine.
We'll eat that one.
We did, one good thing that has happened since the last time we met is that the governor has approved, and the legislature did approve, some more funding for the Hometown Heroes program, which was great to hear. Unfortunately, it wasn't $100 million, it was only $50 million, so I would assume that that money is going to go lightning fast. It should go into effect on July 1st, but I believe Florida Housing Finance Corp. is still putting together the list of those eligible. What I did hear is that it is no longer such a wide spectrum of people that are going to qualify for that financing. It is going back to the original Hometown Heroes program format, so it's going to be your first responders, teachers, veterans, healthcare workers, things like that. But definitely helpful that we've got some more money pumped into that program. That being said, I will pass it off. Joe Sasodia has officially retired, so we do have Darby Del Sal with us in a permanent basis now. So for the director's report, I'll pass it to Darby.
Good morning, everyone. Really quick, we do have a couple of House bills that were signed, 913 and 393. I don't profess to be an expert in any of them, but I did take a look. And with regard to House Bill 913, which deals with condominiums and co-ops and the structural integrity and all that sort of stuff, it did give an extension. The previous extension was through 2024. However, I think when I looked at it, the extension was really through the end of this year. Yeah. So, you know, it's an extension, but I don't know how many people are going to wrap this up in the next 6 months. We'll see. It allows for a temporary pause in reserve funding for 2 years immediately following the milestone inspection, and it gives the condo associations flexibility on meeting the reserve requirements. So it'll basically allow association to also use lines of credit loans to satisfy reserve obligations as they need to move forward. So I got to imagine that's got to help, although in all likelihood, loans of credit will eventually result in assessments. With regard to House Bill 393, My Safe Florida Condominium Pilot Program, this helps with the hardening of buildings. It reduces from 100% of the unit owners to 75% of the number needed to apply for the grant. So you don't have to have a complete unanimity, or not unanimity, but 100% of the owners going for that. Anyways, clarifies that associations must pay at least $1 for every $2 provided by the state grants. It updates the eligibility improvements to include replacement of the roof covering. We were going to research that to see if that was.
I meant the roof or the roof covering.
Yeah, I'm not sure if how that addressed whether, and I read through it really quickly.
It would be the roof.
Yeah.
It would be the roof,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. And then it restricts eligibility to buildings that are at least 3 stories and contain at least 2 dwelling units. And that would be the update. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Darby. Moving on to new business. We just heard a fantastic presentation from Patrice. We are looking to appoint somebody from the Housing Council to be a member of the Broward Continuum of Care. So if anyone on this board has some interest in serving and doing the great work that they're doing, I would entertain a volunteer that we could vote on to put forth. I love that Tanisha raised her hand. I think this is perfect for you.
So good.
And I move to accept her as the appointee.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to appoint Tanisha Taylor as a member of the Broward County Continuum of Care. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Well, congratulations, Tanisha, and thank you so much for your willingness to serve. Next up, discussion for the Broward Housing Council Annual Fall Workshop. A few things that we are going to need from the council. Number one is a couple of proposed dates. We typically do something towards the end of October, beginning of November. A venue, which typically we have done it at the Ann Kolb Center. We also do have the option to make this a virtual workshop if you so choose. We could use some theme ideas as well as potential speakers to bring in. So I guess the first thing we should probably decide is, would this body like that to be a virtual workshop, or do you believe that the in-person is more effective? I'm seeing in-person.
I think in person.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got an in-person workshop. I think Ann Kolb will do just fine, except for the carpet, but that's fine.
The location, I suggest, if I may, I suggest
Yes,
the
sir.
same location.
Ann Kolb Center.
And Kolb
Okay,
Center.
wonderful.
And also a Thursday, preferably. Maybe the 3rd Thursday of October.
3rd Thursday of October. That would put us at, let's see here. That would be October 16th. I could move my meeting that day. How about another date? So that way we've got 2 options in case there's already something booked there.
We have the 23rd.
Both of those.
October 16th or October 23rd. Does that look like that could work for everyone here? I'm seeing heads nodding. Okay. So you could check into those two dates? 16th and 23rd? Thank you. Now, as far as theme idea, when we spoke at the last meeting, we had asked if you all could come with some ideas as far as themes and speakers are concerned. I would take some recommendations for a theme for this year's workshop. What were the last 2 or 3 years' themes that we had?
Last year was the condo reform. That was a big priority. Oh my gosh, we have done, I actually have a spreadsheet of all the themes and all of the speakers we've had, so we don't double.
The year before, I believe
We
we
had-
had Senator Caladiute in to talk about
Live
hometown
Local,
heroes
how
and
could
Live
I
Local.
forget? Live Local was the big one the year before. So the last 2 years, we've had elected officials at the state level
Right.
addressing
Senator Pizzo.
really state, legislation.
Okay.
Before that, we've had various themes to do with financing, trying to think of others that we've had. Let me give that some thought. I should know. We've had them since like 2017.
Okay, fantastic.
So,
Does anybody have any ideas for a theme for this year that's not going to, let's do something different besides the condo reform or the hometown heroes or Live Local? Michelle, go ahead.
So I think aligning with the presentation we just heard would be some sort of think tank. And not so much just the panel and everybody listening, but maybe something where we did a panel, but then actually broke out into groups and actually came up with, sometimes it's good just to hear from the community. So you have a lot of creative people, and just like how she mentioned, those 97 people with $80-something thousand, and how that made a difference compared to the other expenses. So maybe it could be something where we have like a think tank and a round table where people are sitting in groups and actually trying to come up with some solutions, and maybe just putting those type of ideas out there. I think, it might be an opportunity to hear from the community about a different way. Just not, I still think we could do a panel,
Sure.
but have time set aside, because I feel like we do the panel and everybody leaves and then nothing happens, right? So I want to see maybe something that we come out of that, and maybe every group presents, this is what we came up with, this is something that we think could work. And it may, none of those ideas may get implemented, but if one thing gets implemented and leads to,
Sure.
Solution, it could be a viable aspect.
Yeah, and we're continuing that discussion amongst a larger audience. Anyone else?
if I could jump in and just say that I do remember the first year, we were actually out at Treetops Park, but we did that very thing, Michelle. It was more of we had some speakers, but it was really more of, they did break out in groups. We actually had a facilitator with the flip chart, did the whole thing, and then everyone reported. So we could certainly return to a format like that. It's been done before. It's obviously up to you all.
Did that have a good outcome that year? Did you, was there things that came out of it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was. Over the years, it seems like a lot of the workshops were more of a general affordable housing themes. We had a little bit of everything until we, got into, like I said, there was one that was financing and funding only. I do remember, and we had someone from the federal level there. But overall, we've kept things somewhat general. I think it's been nice moving into a more specific theme. I think it makes it easier to get speakers or know where we're going. But that's just my 2 cents of what I've seen over the years. But we can return to that, what you're speaking of.
So if we were going to have a panel discussion and roundtable breakouts, which I think is a great idea, can anybody think of someone who might be best to have on that panel that could bring some ideas to really get that conversation flowing? Go ahead, Beth.
When we went to listen to Mr. Care the other day, Marty was so dynamic. Do you think he would be able to lend some good insight to our panel?
That's an opportunity, and I know for sure that he would say yes.
He's wonderful.
Yes, go ahead. Patrice. That's it. You know what, that would actually be, it would actually be good too. Yes, ma'am. So before I had come in today, it's funny because it fit in line with Patrice's presentation, but one idea that I had written down for a theme would be future-proofing Broward, building resilient communities through housing innovation, and then she talked all about innovative ideas on how to bring things to the table. So I think maybe we could use that as a theme, something that we could use for promotion.
Would you repeat that again?
Future-proofing Broward, building resilient communities through housing innovation. So I think we've got Ann Kolb, we've got a couple of speakers. Certainly, we could come up with a few more before the next meeting. And we've got our dates for Sue to work on. Future-proofing Broward, building resilient communities through housing innovation.
That's awesome.
And I think Patrice would fit in perfectly
Oh,
if she
yeah,
could do a presentation like that for the workshop as well. Because coming off of a presentation like that, I could see if we put a roundtable together, we would be able to hopefully come up with lots of great ideas. You saw Tanisha's head was spinning with ideas over there, through that entire program. So I think that would be great. So Sue, if you can, reach out to Patrice, and Beth, you want to call Marty?
Of course.
Okay, perfect. Does that give us enough to run on?
Yes, I will share the PowerPoint from today, and I will
Fantastic.
also, first let me check on the venues so we know when to ask these people. Let me do that first. That's usually the first step, so we have our date. And then I'll keep everyone in the loop, but we'll definitely let you know so you can reach out to Marty.
Okay, fantastic.
And we'll sponsor it again, the bank, City National. So you don't have to call me.
You're the best.
It's done. Not that I don't mind you calling me Sue, but I mean, I'm just saying, you don't have to
Wow.
wonder.
It's all right. This meeting's recorded, so we have you on tape.
Should we put Michelle and Nathan against each other and see who's going to bring the better breakfast? Absolutely. Okay, so I think that takes us through the fall workshop discussion. We'll touch base again at our next meeting. So into old business. Do we have any old business? Seeing none. We are into public comment. Is there any members of the public that would like to be recognized?
Well, my name is Corinne Nelson. I recently started a foundation
Ms. Nelson, if you don't mind, would you go to the podium and use the microphone?
that was available to me.
We're streaming, so we'd like everybody to hear.
I'm not really a speaker, but my name is Corinne Nelson. I'm the founder of Glorious House Foundation, in honor of my mom who passed 5 years ago, to help women in transition. That's pretty much it for now. I'm looking for a house, and at the present time, we're just helping women to find housing, whether it's in a multi-family, a duplex, or a single-family housing. I'm looking for a single-family housing because I don't have a housing right now. I'm gathering people who have single-family housing that maybe have a room in the back that can facilitate, a young lady who's going through transition. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Any other members of the public wish to speak? No, seeing none. Our next meeting is going to be right back here in this room, 10 a.m. Friday, August 22nd. If you do have any additional ideas that come up for the fall workshop, that would still be 60 days ahead of the time when we're going to put that on. So please come to this meeting with any additional references that you may have for speakers, panelists, things like that would be definitely beneficial. With that being said, and no more business to conclude at 11:19.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
As usual, staff will send a presentation from today to everyone, please.
That being said, meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
you.
Oh, yeah,